Beyond the Debate, Exposing the Flaws in Fundamentalism and Modernism. Written by Christopher Turner, founder and editor-in-chief of Heritage Weekly. First, a word from our sponsors. Explore Christopher Turner's books on Kindle for in-depth studies on Israelite heritage and scriptural truths. Like and support to help continue spreading valuable content. Back to your content. Exposing the Flaws in Fundamentalism and Modernism. The debate between fundamentalism and modernism has dominated much of Christian thought over the past century. Both sides claim to represent the truth of Scripture, fundamentalists clinging to a rigid literalism, and modernists striving to reconcile faith with the advancements of science and culture. Yet for all their differences, both camps share a glaring deficiency, a failure to grasp the full meaning and purpose of Scripture. This article critiques these perspectives, exposing their flaws and revealing a deeper truth that transcends their limited understanding. At its core lies the covenant, a concept central to Scripture but ignored or distorted by both movements. The strengths and weaknesses of fundamentalism. Fundamentalism arose as a reaction to perceived threats to biblical authority and morality. It prides itself on a steadfast commitment to Scripture, promoting doctrines that have been defended as the fundamentals of faith. This approach has provided a sense of stability for those who seek certainty in their spiritual lives. However, fundamentalism's strengths are also its weaknesses. By insisting on a rigid, literal interpretation of the Bible, fundamentalists often fail to recognize the cultural and historical context in which Scripture was written. They overlook its Hebraic foundation, opting instead for interpretations shaped by Greco-Roman thought and post-biblical traditions. Concepts like the Trinity and doctrines such as replacement theology not only misrepresent Yahweh's covenant, but actively distort the Bible's prophetic narrative. In their effort to defend Scripture, fundamentalists end up obscuring the very truths they claim to uphold. Their theology is incomplete because it refuses to engage with the deeper covenantal framework Yahweh established with his chosen people. 2. The intentions and failures of modernism. Modernism emerged as a counterpoint to fundamentalism, seeking to align Christianity with the intellectual and cultural shifts of the modern era. Modernists advocate for a reinterpretation of Scripture, prioritizing reason, science, and ethics over strict adherence to traditional doctrines. While this approach seeks to make faith more accessible in a changing world, it comes at a great cost. Modernism sacrifices the authority of Scripture for the sake of cultural acceptance. By reducing the Bible to a collection of metaphors and moral teachings, modernists strip it of its divine power and prophetic significance. They disregard Yahweh's covenant, focusing instead on universal principles that ignore the specific role of his chosen people in bringing restoration to the world. Modernism, like fundamentalism, misses the mark. While it asks important questions about the relationship between faith and modernity, its answers are rooted in human reasoning, rather than divine revelation. 3. The covenant, the missing key in both approaches. What unites the failures of both fundamentalism and modernism is their neglect of the covenant. The Bible is not merely a guide for moral living, or a historical document to be analyzed. It is the testimony of Yahweh's covenant with his people, a binding relationship that defines his plan for the restoration of the world. Fundamentalists misinterpret Scripture because they fail to see it as a covenantal document. Modernists, in their pursuit of relevance, dismiss the covenant entirely. Both positions reveal a misunderstanding of the Bible's purpose, and a blindness to its central message, Yahweh's unchanging promise to his people, and the role they play in his divine plan. Without the covenant, Scripture becomes a collection of disconnected teachings, open to endless reinterpretation. But with the covenant at its center, the Bible reveals its full power, clarity and purpose. 4. Ye are gods, a higher calling. In Psalm 82:6 Yahweh declares, I have said ye are gods and all of you are children of the Most High. This verse speaks to a divine responsibility, a calling to act as representatives of Yahweh's justice and truth on earth. It is a calling rooted in the covenant and given to those entrusted with his word. Neither fundamentalists nor modernists can fulfill this calling because they lack the understanding necessary to do so. Fundamentalists are trapped in doctrines that distort Yahweh's message, while modernists are bound by their allegiance to secular ideals. Both groups in their blindness fail to rise to the standard Yahweh has set. 5. A strong critique, the limits of human authority. The fundamentalist-modernist debate is at its core a human struggle to define spiritual truths outside of Yahweh's covenant. It is the debate of those disconnected from the divine plan, arguing over interpretations of a text that they cannot fully understand. Both camps are products of a system that perpetuates spiritual blindness and separation from Yahweh's chosen people. This is not just a critique of flawed theology, it is an indictment of the arrogance that underlies these debates. The descendants of oppressors have taken the Scriptures, twisted their meaning, and argued over their distorted interpretations, all while ignoring the prophetic voice of those to whom the covenant was given. Their debates are not a search for truth but a reflection of their inability to see beyond their own assumptions. Conclusion. The fundamentalist-modernist controversy is a distraction, a debate between those who have missed the deeper truth of Scripture. The covenant remains the foundation of Yahweh's word, and only by returning to this foundation can the Bible be understood in its fullness. For those who continue to cling to these flawed approaches, there is no reconciliation. The time for subtle corrections is over. The time for truth has come, a truth that will not bend to the traditions of oppressors or the philosophies of the modern world. It is a truth rooted in Yahweh's covenant, waiting to be reclaimed by those to whom it rightfully belongs. Let the debate end. The truth is not theirs to define. Written by Christopher Turner, founder and editor-in-chief of Heritage Weekly, pioneering covenant theology researcher and principal contributor to Rediscovering Israel, focusing on Israelite heritage, covenant theology, and ancient scriptures. Creator of the AIP after Yahawashi's Passover calendar system, a unique biblical timekeeping method based on Yahawashi's death and Passover, aligning with lunar cycles and prophecy, particularly Daniel 9. Author of Jacob's Trouble, the Birth of a King, the Freedom Articles, and Prophecy